You are tuning into AWANI tonight with me, Saraya Mia. 12 Malaysia Plan outline how can we realize solutions to the challenges we are facing, and decision on interstate travel to be made soon. That's coming up. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob tabled the 12 Malaysia Plan at the Dewan Rakyat today, charting the country's economic focus from 2021 until 2025. With 400 billion ringgit allocated for new and existing projects, it is the country's biggest five-year roadmap, a 54% bigger than 260 billion ringgit allocated under the 11th Malaysia Plan.
The 12 MP targets a GDP growth of between 4.5% and 5.5% a year in the five-year period. The plan also pays special attention to closing the income gap and development in some of Malaysia's least developed states, whereby Sabah, Sarawak, Kelantan, Terengganu, Kedah and Perlis will receive at least 50% of the basic development expenditure in the 12 MP. As part of the goals for a high-income economy, the Prime Minister has set a target for the average household income to reach about 10,000 ringgit a month in 2025. That is an increase of around 40% over the current average of 7,160 ringgit. Ismail Sabri said a whole-of-country approach would be needed to tackle hardcore poverty, which the government aims to eradicate by 2025. For that, a special unit at the federal and district levels will be set up to address poverty and income gaps. The Prime Minister also pledged to reduce the intensity of greenhouse gas emissions of GDP by 45% by 2030. The debate of the 12 MP is scheduled to go on for 4 days at the Dewan Rakyat beginning Tuesday.
Income disparities and poverty eradication were among the main issues aimed to be addressed by the 12 Malaysia Plan. What are the challenges in realizing these solutions? We speak to World Bank's senior economist Shakira Sharifuddin on what is in store and the strategies needed to overcome these issues.
It has been quite a challenge for them ever since the midterm review in the 11th Plan, where we had a change in administration, and now they had the pandemic, and when the parliament was suspended. So to come up with this plan at this current point, I think we should acknowledge that. I think at the broad level, it covers all economic agents, government, households, as well as the private sector, and it also encompasses both the role that private and public sector will play. So there is definitely breadth in coverage.
While the plan clearly outlined the need to address income disparities and poverty issues in the nation, Shakira adds that there's still room for improvement.
It's great that the plan acknowledged regional disparities. It's something that I think we at the bank have highlighted from time to time, that there is a need to look beyond the averages. And the speech that the Prime Minister presented this morning really touched briefly on many parts or measures to reduce that disparity. For example, measures to improve basic infrastructure, whether it's water access, whether it's internet access, whether it's connectivity. Perhaps some of the areas that should be explored in more detail going forward, and again we will probably hear this going in the near term, maybe to include laggard regions in Peninsula as well, in Peninsular Malaysia as well, such as the northern states in Kelantan, Kedah and Terengganu. Another area that could be explored is the deepening of the social safety net, reaching out, for example, to informal workers. And then more needs to be done in terms of addressing and strengthening the social protection system, particularly the fragmentation that we are currently experiencing.
Shakira also stressed the need to come up with a contingency plan in the event of further disasters and uncertainties.
I think what the pandemic has taught us is the need to be flexible and be agile. So I think in this regard, there should be some contingency, or at the back of their mind, what should be done or how should they adapt in the event there is another shock coming to the economy and changes the course of the direction of growth. And one way that this could be done is through the midterm review of the 12 Malaysia Plan.
400 billion ringgit has been allocated for the next 5 years under the 12 Malaysia Plan. How do we ensure the policy roadmap is adhered to and targets are met? Tonight on Consider This, we speak to our guests for their assessment of the 12 MP. Interstate travel will likely be allowed during the first half of October. National Recovery Council Chairman Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin said travelling restrictions will ease once 90% of the country's adult population is fully vaccinated, which he said would be by the middle of next month latest.
Muhyiddin said people can start making plans to travel the country after this, but reminded them to adhere to SOPs. He added the council had deliberated on the issue of reopening Malaysia's international borders to foreign visitors. He said further discussions will be held sometime this week. In addition, Muhyiddin proposed that the government establish state recovery councils to enable a bottom-up approach to the country's economic recovery.
The government will consider a new controlled price on the COVID-19 self-test kits in December. Deputy Minister of Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs, Datuk Rosul Wahid, said ease COVID-19 restrictions alongside the opening of the economic, tourism and education sectors would make the test kits an essential item in the new normal. Rosul also said beginning October, the self-test kits would not only be available at pharmacies and clinics, but also at other types of premises such as supermarkets and convenience shops. He added that the ministry must first ensure that these premises have sufficient information on the sale of COVID-19 self-test kits, including complying with the product labelling requirements and handling methods to facilitate the public in getting the items. Starting September 5th, KPDN HEP set the maximum retail price for each set of COVID-19 self-test kits at 19.90 ringgit, while the wholesale price was set at 16 ringgit. Husbands who are fully vaccinated against COVID-19 will now be allowed to accompany their wives during childbirth in the delivery room. Health Minister Khairi Jamaluddin said they also have to be tested negative for COVID-19 prior to joining their wives in the delivery room.
Khairi was responding to a tweet by a social media user requesting for fully vaccinated husbands who tested negative to accompany their wives in the delivery room. He said that he had discussed the matter with Health Director General Tan Sri Dr. Noor Hisham and will grant the permission for expectant fathers to do so. Under the earlier enforced movement control order, government hospitals do not allow husbands to accompany their wives in the labour room.
We'll go for a quick break. Stay with us.
Semua dah sedia? Jom! Walau apa pun...
Ayuh keluarga Malaysia, kita bulatkan tekad dan bersatu hati untuk terus memelihara serta mempertahankan kedaulatan negara. Sebagai keluarga Malaysia yang besar, kita harus bertoleransi dalam semua perkara. Hormat menghormati serta mengekalkan perpaduan rakyat yang berbilang kaum, agama dan bangsa serta integrasi nasional silang budaya adalah tunjang kekuatan.
Welcome back. Ahead of the tabling of Budget 2022 next month in Parliament, a group of 20 civil society organizations recently launched the Gender Budget Group GBG. Their aim to promote and monitor gender-responsive budgeting across all national budget policies and allocations. Here to share the group's goal and aspiration is Lisa Fernandez.
Right, so a gender-responsive budget looks at the budget's impact on women and girls, men and boys. It notes the differences in situations, roles, contributions, and needs of different communities and stratas of society. So what we do with this knowledge and data, or how we respond, is by allocating specific budgets that will support women and men beneficiaries in projects and programs. The past year has gravely widened the gender divide in Malaysia. Women and their families, persons with disabilities, single mothers, women in the informal sector, they have borne the brunt of this. So, at the heart of the recovery, we need to recognize gender and intersectional vulnerabilities in order to create fair and inclusive fiscal policies.
Lisa said the burden of care often falls on women and girls. Hence, it should be a matter of priority in the upcoming budget.
Essentially, we just need to redistribute the burden of care work because women are bearing the brunt of the social and economic COVID-19 related disruptions. They shoulder 3/4, 75% of unpaid care work, and this amounts to 76 billion ringgit, or 12% of Malaysia's GDP. And this is primarily due to the unequal distribution of household and care work, because we know pre-pandemic, the fact that women also have this role as mother, and they don't have the right kind of social protection in place, infrastructure support in terms of like childcare. It already puts them at a disadvantage.
The Gender Budget Group has submitted a collective budget memorandum to the Ministry of Finance for consideration for Budget 2022. They hope for policymakers to address the gender divide.
The key element really in pushing for gender-responsive budgeting is making sure that we keep that agenda on the table. We keep reminding everyone of the importance of a gendered perspective really throughout, not just when it comes to our budgetary allocations.
Germans remain unsure of their country's political future, a day after the centre-left Social Democratic Party SDP narrowly won the federal elections, beating the centre-right party of outgoing Chancellor Angela Merkel. The result means there could be another coalition government, but it is still unclear over who will be the next leader of Germany. Party leader Olaf Scholz says he has a clear mandate to form government and is starting negotiations with other parties after preliminary results showed the SDP won the largest share of parliamentary seats with 25.9% of the vote. While Merkel's Conservative Christian Democratic Union CDU took 24.1% of the vote, its worst ever performance. Coalition negotiations will now begin, but could take weeks or even months. After Merkel's election win in September 2017, it took more than 5 months for a government to be formed. Merkel, who cemented her position as one of the world's most successful political leader, announced in 2018 that she wouldn't seek a fifth term after 16 years in power. Thailand officials warned that seasonal monsoon rains may worsen flooding that has already badly affected about a third of the country. Tropical storm Tianmu swept through northern Thailand over the weekend, causing flash floods that affected nearly 60,000 families. Authorities warned that 12 provinces along the Chao Phraya River, including Bangkok and the old capital Ayutthaya, must prepare for more flooding. Water levels in the Chao Phraya Dam are expected to increase by 30 centimeters to 1 meter over the next few days. Bangkok's governor did not declare the situation as critical yet, but said the city was carefully operating floodgates and pumping stations. Meanwhile, Thailand will cancel mandatory quarantine for fully vaccinated travelers entering Bangkok and 9 other regions starting November 1st. The government announced this as the country tries to increase vaccination rates and to revive its tourism industry. Currently, only less than a third of Thailand's population have been inoculated. The regions include popular tourist areas Chiang Mai, Phang Nga, Krabi, Hua Hin, Pattaya and Cha'am. All these places will follow the tourist bubble schemes of Phuket and Samui Islands in July. Authorities will also reduce quarantine time nationwide for visitors arriving from October 1st to 7 days for those vaccinated and 10 days for those unvaccinated. Meanwhile, it will also ease restrictions from Friday in 29 dark red provinces under maximum control, including Bangkok. This will allow more businesses and activities to reopen, such as spas, libraries, cinemas, indoor sports venues, and nail salons. That is all we have for you on AWANI tonight. Get the latest news updates on COVID-19 and COVID-19 vaccines from astroawani.com and Astro AWANI app. I'm Saraya Mia. We'll see you again.